there's prostitution going on, because that agreement is the prostitution. So you have to go in, get inside those double doors, get inside that private room as an undercover, acting like you're a customer. So if a normal customer walks in, pays his money, goes to a private room, strips naked, if you don't do that, then you're a cop, and they'll kick you out. So it's very tricky, very tricky. So there's some nakedness going on with enforcement, because you have to, or else you will never get to the inner core of what's going on with these businesses and these organizations.
You have to have that predicate offense to get to money laundering, because you have to be laundering money that's illegally gotten. So how do you prove that? You have to prove that initial illegal act.
And that's where Mike and I come in. We get a complaint on a business, and so once we receive the complaint, we'll start looking at that address. We'll find out who holds the certificate of occupancy, who owns the property. So we'll basically do a general rundown there. Once we get the names and we start identifying individuals that we think are controlling the property, then I'll start getting credit histories. I'll run your credit histories, and I'll start looking at your assets. I'll figure out any credit cards you have. I'll figure out if you have a lien on your vehicle. Once I find out your bank information, your vehicle information, state of Texas, you're supposed to have insurance on your vehicle, so I find out your insurance company. I'll see how you're paying for your insurance. I'll look and see if you have a house within the county of Dallas or within the state of Texas. So I'll start looking at all your assets, and I'll start figuring out how you're paying for your assets. Once we establish that, then I'll get subpoenas on your bank records, and then I'll start seeing how your money's coming in. Mike will check to see if the individual has any legitimate form of income, Texas Workforce Commission. And from there, I'll just start building a case. It's like I say, it's like peeling an onion. You'll start, basically building a case with the credit histories and looking at their assets and looking at the amount of money they're making, where the source of money is coming from. Is there any checks going into your bank account, or is it all strictly cash? How are you paying for your credit cards? Are you have a credit card at the bank, but you go inside the bank and pay cash on your credit card? I'm sorry, that's Siri. I'll sit on her for right now. Keep it quiet. But it's once we start learning your transaction history, we to put a money laundering case on it. Basically, as soon as you get illicit funds and you start making purchases, you're laundering your money. Okay, so that's how the easy part of money laundering is. What else, Mike? We do.
Oh, I was going to just talk about the amount of money that these organizations are making. When we worked the one on Emerald, the two spas, the owner-operators, they were running about $8 million through the casinos in Choctaw. So that's the way, like Todd was explaining, they wash their money, they clean their money. They'll go up to the casino, they'll put $10,000 to $15,000 in the slots, play it for an hour, and they cash out about $14,000. So now it's legitimate money after that. So there is a lot of money that's being seen. We see it going back different ways, back to the mainland and the Far East. But once it gets past our shores, we can't touch it. There's really no way we can do anything with it. You want to go on about that?
Yeah, we have access to a database called FinCEN. It's basically it's a portal that's tied to the Treasury Department. So we can, if there's basically SARS, suspicious activity report. If you basically structure your money, so you go into the bank and you just put in like $2,500 at a time into your bank account. It's all cash. You have the bank has information on you about basically your job or what type of income you might be reporting, and they see in the structure being built into your account. Then they'll create fill out what's called a SAR. That's reported back to FinCEN. If you make a large cash purchase, say you go purchase a car for, you pay down $10,000 or more on your car and you pay cash, the place of business fills out what's called an 8300. It's a report that they fill out because cash purchase was made, and it's again reported to FinCEN. If you make cash withdrawal over $10,000, that's called a currency transaction report. It's filled out, it's reported to FinCEN. So I go to FinCEN and I'll look for all that information. And normally what's tied to that information is bank accounts, credit cards. It'll also, like MoneyGram, Western Union, they'll fill out suspicious activity reports too. Yes, sir.
So, massage parlors, quasi-banking entities, whether they're stateside or foreign, but some kind of bank, and used car dealerships. Isn't that basically the pattern of businesses up and down Harry Hines?
Yes. Cash basis, probably, but once you make, like Lieutenant was saying, once you go in there and make a case, okay, now we know something illegal activity is taking place in there. And for the businesses where I also work on an IRS task force, and so they have guys in there, analysts, that basically just serve FinCEN, okay? So some of these card businesses along Harry Hines, if they deal in cash businesses, yes, it's just, they're supposed to fill out an 8300 if it's cash over $10,000. But they also have other databases out there to show the sale of the car, how many cars you actually sell. So you have all this cash coming in, but yet you're only selling one car a month. You have $100,000 of, coming in to that business. Well, now you're laundering money probably for some other organization. Could be drugs, because we have had cases where drugs were being money from the drug sales were being laundered through used car dealerships. And you go back and check state records and looking for the invoices of the sale purchase of a vehicle, and it doesn't exist. So you start looking at their finances. And with the illicit massage parlors, yes, it's cash and or credit cards, because we've gone in there and when we run the warrant, those little sale terminals, point of sale terminals, we'll confiscate them, and then we'll get data back from like First Data, who's the processor, and we'll find bank accounts connected to that as well. And then you can see, where the money's going to. And also some of these massage bar places, several of them that we've hit, you go into a massage parlor and you pay with a credit card. Well, they're gonna ask for a copy of your credit card and a copy of your driver's license. Okay, and then they'll staple it to a receipt in case you come and you go back home and your wife's like, what's this on my checking account? And you're like, well, I don't know, I'm gonna challenge it. Well, when you try to do a chargeback, the massage business is gonna turn that data into First Data and say, no, this is a legit purchase, so it's never gonna come off your account, so you'll never be able to dispute the charge. So that's why they wrap you up in there. So,
A lot of the massage parlors we've hit also, every single one of them has ATM machines in there.
yeah.
I mean, when you talk about legitimacy, I go get a massage because my back hurts. Number one, there's licenses all over the walls. There is no licenses in these massage businesses. Number two, there is no showers at a legitimate place. There's showers all over in these illicit massage businesses. And there's so many red flags that you see.
Sometimes literally red, neon.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
over the wall. It makes you nauseous walking through.
And based upon the electronic surveillance that we do, it's only guys going into massage businesses. There's no females at all, no female clientele. So it kind of raises the red flag that something is going on here that shouldn't be going on. So anybody else?
From a command perspective, we don't operate in a vacuum. I won't ask you to raise your hands, but I will ask, think about this. How many of you in here have a negative impression of ICE and the thoughts of deporting people? So, and I can understand that. I read the news reports. I see the concerns, especially of our Hispanic population, about being deported and about having their freedoms taken away. We have to work with DHS and ICE specifically when we investigate illicit massage businesses. Not because we are looking to go out as an agency and deport people, but so often we are dealing with foreign nationals who have been trafficked, and the representative arm of government that deals with those people is Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They have the databases. They can link to the flight records. They can tell us when people came into this country, whether they're here legally, whether they have status or not. We are bound in some ways to work with them. And as I said when I started this, we don't operate in a vacuum, so I know that that comes with certain issues already attached. So we are very sensitive to that, and we are very careful with how we cooperate and how we work with ICE. We can't get away from it. We have laid out what our expectations are with the ASAC, and then the SAC, the Special Agent in Charge, and what our policy is. Because we don't want to do anything that's going to deter people from cooperating with us, from dealing with us. We don't want to be seen as an arm of immigration. We do our jobs best when the public can trust us and can talk to us and report criminal activity without fear that the city police officer that they're calling because their car got broken into, because they were assaulted, because some other crime, they're a victim of some other crime. They don't have to worry that we're going to say, okay, we're not going to take your crime, and by the way, you're illegal, so let's go to jail so ICE can deport you. That gets us absolutely nowhere. So those are other challenges, and I'm not giving you answers. I'm giving you the reality of what we're trying, this space that we're trying to navigate. I hope that may or may not have been a consideration, it may not be a concern, but it is for people in our position that are trying to accomplish the business of public safety and maintain legitimacy in the eyes of the public that we serve. Yes, sir.
Chief, a follow-up question to that comment there. What unique challenges present themselves to the city of Dallas with interstates 20, 30, and 35 intersecting the city?
There's a myriad of challenges. The city it's a pro-business city. We have established policies within the city to make it easy for small businesses to function, good, bad, and otherwise. We have building inspection processes and certificate of occupancy processes within the city government that don't always serve us well to combat human trafficking. And so one of the things that Gerald and I did when we were there is try to meet with city attorneys and building inspectors to change certain codes, gather affidavits from, say you want to start a new business, you have to give us a sworn affidavit that says this is the function of this business, so that when we come in, and if we find out that you're actually running a trafficking organization or even an illegal business, an illicit massage business, that we can now revoke your certificate of occupancy and legally go after you to close your doors so that you can't function. We didn't have those protections in place before. Some of the other challenges are training our workforce, removing trafficking from the supply side of the city. So if you're a contractor, say you sell notepads and you manufacture them and you want to sell them to the city of Dallas, okay, great, but we want to put some restrictions on you to make sure that you're not using trafficked labor to manufacture your notepads that you're then going to sell to the city of Dallas. Houston had a great program in place. We're trying to take their lead and bring forth a resolution at City Council that says, hey, as a city, we're going to work to try to eliminate any kind of trafficking from our supply chain. It's a double-edged sword. We want to promote the free flow of traffic for goods and services, but in doing so, that also promotes the free flow of traffic for illicit goods and illicit services.
Can I add to that?
Oh, please.
So, we call them tracks, and on street level prostitution, the highways are tracks, and they're the tracks that pimps bring their prostitutes or victims from like Houston to Dallas to Oklahoma City to Vegas, down to Phoenix, El Paso, like Midland and back. So Dallas is a hub for street level prostitution because of the tracks. Working for the Texas Attorney General, I have I guess it's like a great, a great amount of freedom where if a pimp in Dallas is working the Dallas track, it gets hot, he leaves Dallas,
when I was with Dallas Vice, I would have to wait for him to come back. Working for the state, I don't have to do that. I can follow him wherever he goes. Right now, I'm currently tracking pimps that are working the Dallas, College Station, the Houston circuit. And I have as much freedom as I want to follow these pimps and videotape them and put trackers on their cars and get hotel receipts everywhere they're going, which is a huge benefit because it proves the trafficking, the harboring, and everything else that goes along with trafficking. But that is one of the problems about the freeway system and the hotels along them, is those hotels are businesses for traffickers. And, you know, like you were saying, was the undercover work and stuff like that. We still have to have vice detectives who are willing to look at ads and walk into a hotel room and make a prostitution transaction. And so we can backtrack it and get the pimp. So with the major highways, you're also gonna see that with corridors with, when women and when people are smuggling into Texas and they'll be brought up to Victoria, they'll separate the women, and then from there they'll send them to Houston. And then the women are prostituted from Houston to Dallas, up to Memphis, along that track. And they just follow the freeways. So a lot of the freeway interdiction and stuff we do also has to do with just the traffic and angle of it. We know they follow the freeways, so we have to be on the freeways. So that has a ton to do with it. It's the lifeline of the traffickers. It's those freeways.
Please don't take what I said as a criticism necessarily of ICE. There are some phenomenal agents working over there that are just as concerned about the victims and treating people fairly and with respect. It's just a reality of the politicized world and the divided world that we live in, that I think it's important to understand those are some challenges that we deal with. So.
Folks, we're out of time, so if anybody has one burning question, we'll be willing to entertain it. Last question.
And this is also a question for Liz as well. What type of priority has the federal government done in terms of legislation or even funding to law enforcement to specifically tackle this problem? Because I do understand that law enforcement, you do fill a whole range of roles there. This is just another one of the many, many types of things that you have to take care of. So do you see that? Do you see some shortfalls, or what would be kind of your assessment on how the federal government prioritizes this problem?
What a wise question. It's a really, you know, it's funny, I was gonna ask you guys, how much time does it take you to do one IMB investigation?
It depends.
Okay, whatever.
So if we're gonna do just a hit and
Yeah.
close,
Well,
without any money.
do money,
laundered,
with money laundering,
About 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months for one, and maybe it's the same if there's two businesses looking at the same time, I don't know. So that is obviously a tremendous amount of resource from an incredibly dedicated local law enforcement entity. And it's a really good question. Probably one of the things that we've been working with extensively over the last year is working to advocate within the federal government, the FBI within the Human Trafficking Prosecution Unit, a little, because if they wanted to, these are so networked. This could be, I don't want to say stamped out all the way, but I mean, it could be dealt with in such a quicker manner if they're looking at it from the visa entry side and all this kind of stuff. So we actually do a fair amount of work and outreach to the head of the Human Trafficking Prosecution Unit and to other folks in the federal government. I do think, though, that if I was a college student who wanted to be politically involved and someone was like, hey, here's a form letter you could send to your congressman or congresswoman, this could be a really great thing to do. And this is, you know, it makes sense that the FBI prioritizes child porn cases. Like, that's not crazy at all. That makes sense. Child exploitation, child porn, that is a huge amount of time, and that's a lot of their investigators' time. This is still a big issue, and I think there's still room to do more around that. So there has been room. I know the Trump administration just announced millions and millions of dollars they'd be reallocating to state and federal resources around human trafficking. I don't know how much that is allocated to this particular issue. They just announced that in January. And I would like, you know, for people to be really vocal about, like, this should be a piece of the puzzle. Acknowledging that it is really complicated and there are lots of deserving victims who need help. So, but it's a good question.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So you mentioned the federal government, which I'm not really gonna get into about that. But the state of Texas considers this an incredibly important issue. And the governor's office has started task forces throughout the state of Texas to not only combat human trafficking, but also to provide resources for human trafficking victims. And they're actually creating databases that go after the Johns too, which is a huge step forward in law enforcement. I don't think you understand the importance of that. And for my own boss, the Texas Attorney General, it's his #1 priority. We have an 8-man group for the state of Texas that handles human trafficking. We have advocates, we have attorneys, we have so many resources that were not available to me as back in the early 2000s when I was with Dallas Vice that are available now. So the state of Texas is considered this priority #1 in a lot of people's eyes and have really given us the backing we need to help combat it. And to show how that kind of works is that Mike called me the other day and he says, hey, a Dallas guy has a human trafficking case he's opening up and you want in. So we went to a meeting and my office is taking all of the South Texas part of it. They're going North Texas and out of the Texas area. And we're working jointly together, which is something you never used to see. So a lot of positives are happening, and I think it's good for everybody.
I would just add, I've taken part in a couple of fellowships with the city of Houston. They've got a great trafficking program that they built in response to getting the Super Bowl, and they have put together some great best practices. It's a 10-10 fellowship, so they've got 10 cities from across the nation that are working to more completely and more fully address that with the help of state and local resources as well as federal task forces. So it's a sizable problem. I'm encouraged about the work that these people are doing. Hearing Mike and Todd talk about the investigation part, I get giddy. I start smiling because they put the pieces together, and it's great to see when the criminals get taken down, and they do a phenomenal job. And as I said, you guys are lucky to have people of that caliber doing the job that they do. So,
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
On that note, everybody, let's give our panel a round. Those of you who don't have classes tomorrow, enjoy your weekend. Good weather is ahead.
We'll hang around a little bit if you have any other questions.
Yeah, y'all have questions?